They say some treasures are best left buried, and some voices are best left unheard. Tonight, we journey deep into the rugged, unforgiving heart of the American Southwest, to a place where the wind carries more than just sand. It carries a warning. This is the chilling legend of the Whispering Tribe and their cursed treasure. Our story begins in the late 1800s, a time of gold fever and relentless expansion. Among the countless prospectors drawn to the vast, sun-scorched deserts was a man named Silas Croft. Unlike others who sought veins of gold in the mountains, Silas was obsessed with a different kind of prize. He was a collector of myths, a chaser of legends, and he had become fixated on a story whispered by the local Navajo and Hopi people, a story they only told in hushed tones after the sun had bled from the sky. The legend spoke of an ancient people, a tribe that existed long before any known records. They weren't known for their warriors or their grand cities, but for their voices. It was said they could sing the rain from a cloudless sky, heal the sick with a single note, and speak to the spirits of the land. But their most guarded secret was a unique ability. They could imbue gold with the essence of their voices, creating a treasure that didn't just shine, but whispered. This tribe, now lost to time, became known as the Whispering Tribe. According to the legend, this tribe faced a catastrophic drought. Desperate, their greatest singers and shamans gathered their most precious gold. They performed a final, desperate ritual, pouring their life force, their knowledge, and their very souls into the metal. They believed this act would appease the spirits and save their land, but the ritual went wrong. Instead of life, it created a curse. The gold absorbed their despair, their sorrow, and their eternal cries for help. The tribe vanished without a trace, leaving behind only their cursed treasure buried somewhere in a hidden canyon, and a chilling prophecy. Whoever disturbs the gold and hears their voices will be claimed by the desert, their own soul joining the eternal, sorrowful choir. The local tribespeople knew to avoid the canyon of lost voices. They spoke of travelers who wandered too close and were never seen again, of lone cowboys who returned raving mad, their minds shattered by phantom whispers on the wind. They warned Silas Croft. They told him the whispers start subtly, like the rustling of leaves or the sigh of the wind through rock formations. But soon they become clearer, calling your name, promising riches, knowledge, anything your heart desires. It's a lure, a siren's call from the earth itself. To hear, it is to be snared. But Silas, blinded by ambition, dismissed these tales as superstitious folklore. He spent months piecing together fragments of the legend, studying ancient petroglyphs, and bribing reluctant guides for scraps of information. Finally, he believed he had found it, a map, crudely drawn on a piece of dried leather, pointing to a narrow, winding canyon unknown to modern cartographers. Armed with his map, a stubborn mule, and a dangerous sense of invincibility, Silas ventured into the forbidden lands alone. For days he traveled under the blistering sun, his water supply dwindling. The silence of the desert was immense, almost deafening. Then, on the third night, it began, a faint sound, almost imperceptible, carried on the night air. At first, he thought it was the wind. But as he lay by his campfire, the sound grew. It wasn't just wind, it had a cadence, a rhythm. It sounded like ... whispering. He shook his head, blaming fatigue and the isolation. The desert plays tricks on the mind, he told himself. The next day, he found the entrance to the canyon exactly as the map had described. It was a dark, narrow slit in a massive rock wall, barely wide enough for his mule. As he stepped inside, the temperature dropped and the oppressive sunlight was replaced by a gloomy twilight. The whispers were louder here, echoing off the towering canyon walls. They were no longer a formless murmur. He could almost make out words spoken in a language he didn't understand, yet somehow he felt their meaning. They spoke of sorrow, of loneliness, of a deep, unending thirst. But ignoring the primal fear clawing at his gut, Silas pressed on. The canyon twisted and turned like a serpent. The whispers grew more insistent, more personal. They began to call his name. Silas, ... Silas, ... double quotes. It echoed, sounding like a dozen voices at once. Male, female, old and young. They knew him. A cold dread washed over him, but greed was a stronger master. He was close. He could feel it. The whispers were his guide. He followed the voices deeper into the canyon's belly until he reached a small, circular cavern. And there, in the center, was a shallow pit. Inside, illuminated by a single shaft of light from above, was the source of the whispers. It wasn't a chest or a pile of coins. It was a collection of bizarre, twisted gold artifacts. They were shaped like human throats, vocal cords intricately rendered in gleaming metal. They pulsed with a faint internal light, and the whispering emanated directly from them. It was the treasure of the whispering tribe. As Silas stared, mesmerized, the whispers changed. They stopped pleading and began promising. They offered him the power of their voices. "Take us, Silas," they seemed to say. "You will command the rains. You will speak, and men will obey. All the world's secrets will be yours." The temptation was overwhelming. Every dream he'd ever had was being offered to him. He reached down, his hand trembling, and picked up one of the golden throats. The moment his skin touched the metal, a deafening scream erupted. Not in the cavern, but inside his own head. It was the combined agony of an entire tribe, a psychic shockwave of 1,000 years of despair. The whispers weren't a promise. They were a trap. They weren't offering power. They were seeking a new host, a new voice to add to their tortured chorus. Silas dropped the artifact and stumbled back, clutching his head. But it was too late. The voices were inside him now, a permanent part of his consciousness. They swirled and shrieked, tearing his sanity apart. He ran. He fled the cavern, fled the canyon, driven by a madness that had completely consumed him. He left behind his supplies, his mule, even the gold. He just ran. Weeks later, a group of Navajo sheep herders found him wandering the edge of the desert. He was skeletal, sun-blackened, and stark raving mad. He couldn't speak in coherent sentences. All he could do was whisper. He whispered constantly, a jumble of disconnected words, ancient phrases he couldn't possibly know, and desperate, sorrowful pleas. They said his eyes were empty, as if his soul had been scooped out, leaving only an echoing shell. He had not found the treasure, he had become a part of it. Silas Croft, the legend chaser, spent the rest of his short life in a sanitarium, whispering secrets of the desert to the padded walls until his own voice finally gave out. The treasure of the Whispering Tribe remains hidden, waiting in the canyon of lost voices. The legend lives on as a stark warning. Some say on quiet nights, if you listen closely to the wind in that part of the desert, you can still hear the voices of the lost tribe, and among them, a newer, more familiar voice, whispering its eternal regret. A reminder that the deadliest traps are not set with jaws of steel, but with the tempting whispers of a cursed treasure. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of a haunted legend. If you enjoy stories that blur the line between myth and terrifying reality, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. Stay safe out there and listen to the wind.